Oh, tēnā koutou. Nei rā te mihi kia koutou tēnei wā, nau mahara mai ki tēnei hui o tātou, te hui o te tēnei committee whakahirahira, nei rā te mihi, ki ngā kaunihira, ngā kaimahi o te kaunihira nei, ngā koutou, ki ngā manuhiri kua tāmai nei, Julie, Amanda, nei rā te mihi kia kōrua te wanginui o mātou, tēnā kōrua. So just standing to open our hui and just acknowledge our staff and councillors and also our visitors that we have today, although they're not really visitors, they're sort of part of us. And I said that this is an important committee, and it's an important committee because we have two appointed people to our committee, Oliver and Oscar, and Alice. My memory's going on me, getting old, almost 50, you know. But it's awesome to have you guys here with us and looking forward to our meeting. And I'm going to hand over to Oscar to Karakia. Kia ora.
Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, he aki ana te apakura, he tio, he huka, he hou hu tihei Māori ora.
Kia ora, Oscar. Tēnā pu. So yeah, welcome to the meeting. We've got no apologies at the moment. Well, apologies from Councillor Cranwell. Actually, he's a bit late. He had to do an interview out there, so he's stopping down his lunch right now. So he'll be in a moment. Is there any other apologies? We've got Councillor Sunkel and Councillor Korako online. Oh, Councillor Ward. Yeah, Councillor Ward's an apology. He's had his surgery today. Yeah. Any conflicts of interest? I haven't received any. Anyone got anything on the agenda? No. We've got no public forum, deputations or petitions today, no extraordinary or urgent business, and no notice of motion. We'll go to 7.1.
No, but in there I need to go and do something at 2:15, and I note that I'm doing a report that Rod gave to the Canterbury Mineral Forum, so hopefully we can get to that by then.
Thanks, Chair Scott. So we'll go to 7.1. That's the unconfirmed minutes of our last committee meeting on the 15th of November 2023. Have we got any questions on that? No? If not, we'll put that to the motion that we confirm the minutes of our last meeting on the 15th of November 2023. Go mover. Yeah, Councillor Burns, and secondly, Councillor Robinson. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? All carried. Thank you. We're going to go to our first report item. That's 8.1, and that's resolutions report for this committee. And I'll ask Kath to introduce it.
Thanks, Chair. Just reminding the committee that paragraph number 2. So basically, these papers bring forward any outstanding resolutions that are incomplete from previous meetings, or list the ones from just the last meeting. So there are none outstanding from meetings prior to the last meeting, which was in November, and all of the ones from November are complete. So it's straightforward.
Thanks, Kathleen. Is there any questions on the resolutions report? Doesn't look like it. That's good. So let's put it to the vote. So that this committee notes the status of the previous resolution provided in the status report March 2024. Councillor Robinson moved it. Well done. Any seconders? Go on, Alice. Oh, Alice is going to second it. That's great. Not coerced at all. And all those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. Okay. Now we get to our important topics. 8.2. Not that that was important. Exciting, maybe. This is a bit more exciting. This is 8.2. This is our youth corporate presentation. So I'm going to ask Julie and Amanda to come to the table, along with Ricky coming up, and Ross and Zoe. Yep. Bottom line. So welcome to the meeting. It's great to have our co-chairs of the Youth Rōpū with us, and Jolie is a mana whenua representative too, so it's awesome to have you here. And I know that we had our councillor liaison Youth Rōpū catch up recently, a week or so ago, so that was nice to catch up and sort of see this annual report that you put together. So really looking forward to it. I'm going to hand over to you guys to take it away. Thank you.
Kia ora, Chair. Yeah, I was just going to introduce Jolie and Amanda, but you've done that for me because it's not about me, it's about me, but I also wanted to introduce to the councillors Jolie Watson, our Senior Youth Engagement Education Advisor, and Ricky Welsh, our Lead Advisor Youth Engagement Education. Both of whom will have a strong role with youth property supporting them. So you'll come to see their faces and see their names with us. So without any further from me, I'll hand over to Jolie.
Ka tangi te titi, ka tangi te kāka, ka tangi te pipau, ki hei ngari ora. Ko tapu ai o te maunga, ko waro te awa, ko pura haupo te waka, ko tua mātene, te marae, ko hāpai rangi te awa, ko tuataki, ko te hapu, ko te tau ipu, ki te kare, ko McDonald te ingoa whānau, ko Jolie tōke ingoa. Kia ora everyone. The co-chairs, I've got my iwi and my, anyway, I was saying like I actually took down to Hukanui, and my mountain and my, everything I did there, that's still got my iwi up on top, Rangitania, Kapi, here, so on top there. Third year in Rōpū, third year at UC. Yep. Kia koutou, ka tangi te titi, ka tangi te kāka, ka tangi te koa, te hei mauri ora, ka tangi te toki maunga, ka mihi te awa no te whanganui a kara hau ko o te tahi kangi naina, ko wapanui te kura, ko hatu ingoa whānau, ko Amanda, ko te ingoa, no reira te ngā koutou, tēnā rā tātou katoa. Kia koutou, I'm Amanda Kennedy. This is also my third year on the Rōpū, and I am the other co-chair. I'm currently in my last year of high school at Whakatau. Originally from Wellington, but living here now. I'll just pass it to Jolie too. Do you guys have the annual plan in front of you? Okay, awesome. I'll just do like a brief run through, just kind of covering like kind of the main things each we did last year. So you can flip through if you want. So the main things for our environment for last year, that was mostly focused on like biodiversity on the ground, stuff planting, which you can see, like getting down in the community. And then our governance toys. You know, obviously, so we have Alison Oscar here, so most of the focus was to do with that last year, with the selection panel, and I guess making sure that came smoothly along, which I guess you guys obviously know a lot about. Our mana whenua koi is probably the one I know the most about because obviously I was on. We had two events. We had a fertility or waitangi training and a nuhua rehua to reflect on the year. There were also a few things we did that changed for the structure of it. So we voted at the very beginning of the year to have, instead of just one chair, we had co-chairs, and one of those co-chairs would be mana whenua, which I am this year. And we also changed our prioritization of how we recruit mana whenua. So it's probably click on. So I'm from Hokanui, so I'm not mana whenua to this area, but when we do our recruitment process, we now prioritize the local Papati Pūrunanga, obviously, and then wider to further out Ngāi Tahu Papati Pūrunanga, and if there are none of those, then it goes on to Māori. So we still have representation. If when we do our recruitment, we can't get mana whenua in the local area because we have struggled to get proper representation. We also changed it so, because it used to be 2 mana whenua representatives, like how it mirrors with the council, but now it can be a maximum of 5. This year we have 3, last year we had 3, the year before we had 2. And that is something we're just working with our recruitment process. Yeah. And next, public transport. It's a bit of a typo there. It's supposed to say public transport and engagement. So that's 2 hoi, with 2 different parts there. But there was the main parts for public transport was creating a public transport youth reference group. So that's with like wider public, not just in the Iken Youth Rōpū. And then for engagement, the main things we focused on, we have a radio show, Fixed Up Waitaha, which like aims to get our issues out and like our voice into the community in a way that will engage young people. And then the Enviro Leaders Network, which is, I guess, high schoolers, for like the leaders of their enviro groups come together, share ideas, work together kind of thing. Yeah, that's kind of like the main summary of our annual report from last year. I'll go back to Amanda.
Awesome. Kia ora. I'm just going to talk very briefly about some structural changes that we made to the way we run the Rōpū. So we've increased our member count from 16 members. At the time it was 2 mana whenua and 14 constituency members to a maximum of 20 members. This does not mean we are looking for 20 members every time. It just means that we have the potential to include 20 members. Again, we've increased the number of mana whenua reps from 2 to 5, and we have 3 this year. We've changed our recruitment process in part with prioritisation, but we also now require our recruitment panel to have at least 2 Rōpū members on it, former Rōpū members that is, and one of them must be a mana whenua rep. Again, we've also changed it so that we now only require 1 member to represent each constituency, as we found that it's really important to engage with young people from across the region. And while constituency is still our priority, we often find that there are people in one constituency who would be amazing to engage with and who cannot because that seat is filled. So we can now have general members. Yeah, we've also absorbed the responsibilities of last year's governance hoi into the exec for this year, and we have added a new hoi. Hoi are working groups, just in case anyone was unaware, which is the civics hoi. So just very briefly going to run through our member list. We have 4 general members this year, so members who do not represent an individual constituency. We have 3 mana whenua reps again, and we have 11 new members compared with last year's Rōpū. Cool. So I'm just going to pass it back to Jolie, who's going to talk about some of the priorities for the year ahead.
And I'll just jump in just on page 22 of the papers that's got the full list of all the current members, I think. So, thank you.
Again, so this year we've got some clear goals that we want to work with. As I said, we've got 11 new members, so a lot of our priorities are, well, they're not different, but we've got a lot of strong, passionate young people. Specifically this year for environmental actions, we have a lot of our, like I think 3 of our members are from down in Timaru, and one of them, she has a lot to do with the penguins on the coast. So a lot of them have strong passion for the coast. So they're definitely looking at working on some environmental actions down there to do with coastal protection. And they're still really wanting to do on the ground planting. So I think in terms of environmental actions, that'll probably be a lot more of a focus this year. Some other priorities this year from mana whenua side, we want to build a mana whenua representative alumni network. So basically, because we have such a high turnover rate, so next year, let's say I'm not in it, one of the mana whenua reps, she's 15, so we want her to have the support, know that she's got people there with the same knowledge to support her and the endeavours when it comes to representing mana whenua within the Iken Youth Rōpū. And we want that to be a normal to continue over the years. We also want to strengthen our connection with the Tuia team, again, to providing support within Environment Canterbury, building that relationship between youth and not youth. And I'm not gonna I didn't mean to word it that way, apologies. So that's another key focus, and then our third key focus is strengthening our relationship with Papati Pūrenganga. That's something that we strongly believe we want to start early at the first basis, I guess, when you're studying at Environment Canterbury, not when you just get to the top, go, oh, we want to engage with Papati Pūrenganga. And the way we're going to do that is through recruitment, making sure that all the local Papati Pūrenganga know that we're looking for youth representation and that we want them to be a part of it. Yeah.
Kia ora, yeah. I will just touch on the rest of the priorities. So one of our big priorities this year is continuing to develop our inter-school enviro network. It's incredibly isolating to be an environment leader in a school at times, and we just want to wrap support around our young people who are putting in, you know, so much work in their schools. We want to expand this to include South Canterbury. We have 3 representatives from South Canterbury this year, which is amazing. 2 of them are based down there and 1 is up here for university. And they're incredibly keen to just continue that outreach in South Canterbury. Our next big priority is developing the public transport youth reference group. This was touched on earlier by Jolie, but we found as the youth Rōpū that it's often difficult for young people to engage in adult spaces, just, you know, timing, school, university, other busy lives, work, and due to the fact that young people make up such a high proportion of public transport users, us and public transport staff felt that it was really important to build that connection and create that reference group. Improving young people's awareness of local government is a big one. We find that when we engage with not just young people, but adults as well, that they're not actually amazingly sure of what local government is or what it does and what its role is. And we think that it's really, really important that people, you know what local government is so that they're able to engage with it better in the future. And so that, you know, they're not just the guys who take my rates every month sort of thing. We are working in part with Zoe for that. So that's a part of the role of our new civics boy. And then communication and engagement through social media platforms and our podcast. We want to just continue to broaden that, continue to engage with young people. And then we will be running a campaign on the long-term plan to try and get young people to engage with it. We were quite successful in our campaign with engaging with the annual plan several years ago. And we want to build off that platform and continue to encourage young people to engage. So,
Awesome. Thank you both. That was a great update, and of course, nice to hear about your priorities going forward as well. Going to take some questions now. I've got Councillor Davies first, and then I'll go to Councillor Scott.
Just in terms of the executive committee, what's the process of the election of that and what's its function?
Yeah, awesome. The process of electing our executive committee is pretty simple. At the start of the year, we have a large in-person hui where we encourage members to get to know each other and get to understand what the Ikeni Rōpū is. During this hui, we nominate members for certain roles, and they are voted in by the Rōpū. The role of the executive committee is essentially to oversee a large portion of the running of the Rōpū. So our secretary is responsible for stuff like answering our emails and communications, writing agendas. Our role as chairs is to chair meetings, can encourage young people to, you know, participate and contribute and offer support where needed. And our deputy chair's role is very simple.
What's the number of people on the executive?
So in our executive, we have me and Jolie, who are co-chair and co-chair mana whenua. We have our deputy chair, Shelby Allen, and then we have our secretary, Rowan Matthews.
Councillor Scott.
You feel like thank you for your report. Now, it's pretty in-depth stuff here. I was pretty interested in right from South Canterbury, so I'm pretty interested in your three references you made to South Canterbury. I'm quite proud of that you've got some support down there. But is there a need to treat them differently and put more support around them from an environment and the council perspective?
I'd say, yeah, we definitely are proud to say that we have South Canterbury reps because we have struggled in the past to get representation down there, and we are aware that it is a lot more isolated down there for environmental action, just from what we've heard from their perspectives. But I don't think that needs to be like treated as being special, but it's definitely, I feel like they do need a little more support.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. There you go.
I was just gonna say, yeah, because we find similar for our North Canterbury representatives is that it is a trick to get in here, and we do and to support both of them as much as possible.
I reckon the answer is back to Chair Scott. Say, well, if you want to give us some more budget, Chair Scott, we'd welcome that. Can you find some for us?
The answer to that is that you're the chairman, so you need to get on and do something about that yourself.
Happy to. I'll accept any proposals and we'll put them to the committee. So there you go. But I think it's a valid point around, obviously people that have further risk, and we have people in this room that obviously represent those regions, and they obviously get travel allowance and all that sort of stuff. So just something to think about and maybe work through the staff to think about what might be needed if they need any support. Okay, I've got Greg, Vicky, and Genevieve. Does anyone else want to ask a question? And Grant. Cool. Okay, Greg.
Kia ora, kōrua. Fantastic. In the short time that I've been involved with Environment Canterbury as a councillor, I've absolutely loved the opportunity to come along to them. I just have a question, really a little bit on the festival for the future. We were, two of us who were at the last meeting, had the opportunity to hear a bit about it. I think there is some value perhaps of you giving some comment to the other councillors around the table. Would it be possible for
Yeah, so last year we attended the Festival for the Future, and we had I think a few free tickets, and because the Rōpū was a lot smaller, we took most of the Rōpū up. I think the feedback we got from the Rōpū is that it was like generally they were glad they went and they found beneficial purpose in going, and a lot would like to go again. We've had Amanda and I, so we've had discussion about it because it is coming up. We decided that I guess the main thing people took away from it is the whanaungatanga with the members, which is super beneficial, but we have decided that it's because our Rōpū is a lot bigger, we probably won't do it again just because it is a big fragment of the budget and there's better ways to get to know your peers than that. So, yeah.
I'm going to Vicky, Genevieve, and Grant.
Yeah, I know last term there was some fantastic work done on the engagement around the annual plan, and specifically with public transport. It's great little icon, the like little smart snappy things that you use to communicate, and it was fantastic. Just wondering with the youth reference group for public transport, because again that sounds like a really good mechanism for you to be able to engage. Is it open to others, or is that exclusively for your corporate members?
Yeah, I think the thing we had when we came up with the PT Europe, as we call it, is that it should be open to members of the public, and it is. Our first TUI is tomorrow, in fact, and we have majority not useful for members. So yeah, just engaging with as many youth as possible in that space.
Fantastic, thank you. And then on the civics side of things, so I don't know if you've had aware, we've got some civics education material that we've developed in-house that may be drafted at the moment. I'm not sure where it's at, but I'm wondering if you'd be interested to see that if you haven't already, and maybe as a group, maybe explore how that might get to engage with in amongst your peers or schools or university or what have you. So is that something you're already across, and if not, then make sure you pick that up.
Yeah, awesome. I'm pretty sure that was developed by the wonderful Zoe down the end of the table. So we are definitely across that and aware of it. Yeah.
Great stuff. Genevieve.
Mine's just more of a comment, but you mentioned projects down in South Canterbury with relation to coastal projects. Music to my ears. But yeah, I'd really love to have chat with some of those members working on that space. What the plans are for the future, and if I can assist in any way, or that would be really good. But well done on that. Cool.
Make sure you follow that up, you guys.
Oh, we will, thank you.
My question was about your membership of your group, and you're struggling in North Canterbury and places like that. I know that in North Canterbury there are quite a few other local authority kind of youth groups. Do you engage with all the other TA youth groups, and do you come together every now and then?
Yeah, we do. We have services something called Youth Voice Canterbury, so YVC, which is a collection of all of the Canterbury youth groups. And recently, I think last year and this year, it's taking a big kick off into building a community there. So we're definitely coming together. Once we've had most to do with probably, Christchurch Central, Huranui, Waimakariri, Darwin, and then we even had Kaikoura come into our fertility training last year, which was pretty cool. So they covered it with 16 in the morning to come, which was awesome. But yeah, we're definitely building that network. Awesome.
Thanks, Grant. Ian.
Well, thanks, Craig. You described most of your members. And listening to you, you're very clear. You're long on environmental credentials and mana whenua credentials. I just and you talk about you want to influence decisions around council. We have quite a number of issues that we have to sort through. A lot of them are dealing with how we spend our money, how we spend ratepayers' money, what we value for that accountability. So I guess my question is really, have you got a diversity of expertise around it? You local to actually provide good insight and from your demographics position on some of those.
Do you mean specifically to mana whenua, or do you mean the whole data?
I'm sorry, you made a very strong case, and this is it's really cool. You've got a lot of environmental credentials around the group, enthusiasm for saving the coast in South Canterbury and planting trees and all those sorts of things. And you've also made a strong, expressed strong importance of your connections to mana whenua and how you're trying to strengthen that. I mean, those are only two of the several issues that we have to deal with as a council. So I guess my question is, in terms of your makeup of your not only your youth group focus, but also are you reflecting on the importance of the economic and social health of the region, and how you can advise us as to whether we're getting the balance right or wrong from a youth perspective? Are you representing the interests of a lot of the youth who aren't necessarily students, but actually leave school at 16 and go out to the workforce and those sorts of people who have probably a different focus than some of the focuses you have to represent? And a lot of this is to do with financial management and accountability as well. Just asking for whether you've got that sort of skill base, and whether perhaps there's a reflection you might consider to expand your diversity to reflect some of that.
Yeah, Kia ora, awesome. Appreciate the question. So one of our members has left school. She's 16 and she is working at the moment and studying online rather than attending school regularly. So that's definitely, I think, a thing that we take into account. In the past, the Rōpū have made a range of submissions on council policy, as I'm sure many of you know. And as part of that process, we go out and we consult people who are not just the Rōpū, because we, as you are, represent our whole wider community of young people. And so I think we are doing relatively well in terms of our diversity. You can always improve. Everyone can always improve, right? But yeah, we go out and we consult people who are not in school, who are working, and who have other expertise in terms of economic management. Several of our members are studying issues surrounding that. So yeah, thank you.
Got it. Oscar.
If I was to also respond to that question, Gus, I think it's a wider idea of representation and whether, because we're not necessarily full-blown adults if we have economic sense. I'd first put that question back to the council and question whether it's a prerequisite for people that run for council to actually have a lot of economic expertise that goes further than just like budgeting. But secondly, I think the problem with that insinuates that normal citizens and normal teenagers or adolescents shouldn't be engaging in the democratic process because they don't have a really clear sense of exactly how everything in the economy works. And I think we often hear from people giving feedback to the council who are not accountants or don't have business backgrounds. They have a passion for something, and I think that it's really important that we treat that as something that is just as valid, because I think it's really important for councils to be issues driven. And I also thought, just engaging on the idea about having wider representation, I think first of all, you said the diversity is pretty great, and I think the insinuation here is that actually there's probably a request for, when you say more economic diversity or more, I think there's some thinly veiled themes there. And what I would say is that I think it's really important to acknowledge that anybody can apply for the Rōpū. If they look at the profile and click on the website and click apply, they have the same right to do so as anybody else, and they will be considered along the same lines as anybody else who is applying that is not mana whenua.
If I can just, I wasn't insinuating anything. I was asking some questions.
Good. We don't need to debate this right at the moment. We're just asking questions of our two guests. But thank you for that. Look, I thought it was well answered in terms of that. And I think it is important, like you said, we can always do better. And it is, I mean, I've been through the recruitment process with you guys, and it isn't easy. You know, encouraging people to come forward and be part of the Rōpū in the first place. So, you know, there's challenges and barriers there for that. We know that you give up your time for free, etc. So I think that's important to acknowledge that these guys are involved because they want to be, and they're doing a great job for us in terms of reaching out to a part of our community that we don't often hear from. So well done, but good question, Ian, and I think it's part of just improving the youth Rōpū as we go forward. So well done. I think that's all the questions I had there. That's good, and again, well done for your great responses, and I hope that's given council a really good insight into what the guys are up to this year. As you can note in the paper on page 23, number 6, that's the priorities for the year that were outlined, and we're about to put the resolutions to the committee. And the first one is that we note the Youth Rōpū's 2023 annual report that was attached, and that was presented. And also we note the Youth Rōpū's, the members that are listed on page 22 there, and also the priorities, like I said, that are listed on page 23 in the papers. Councillor Davies happy to move it. Cool. And Councillor Robinson happy to second. People were jumping out at the end. There you go. Okay, put this to the vote unless there's any debate. No, we won't go there. Put it to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Cool, carried. Well done. Hey, thank you so much again. Keep up the great work. I look forward to your work around the long-term plan. That's an important campaign for us, and we'll be looking forward to that feedback when we get into our deliberations through the process. So looking forward to that. And also that civics work, I think, well done for picking that up. And support Councillor Southworth, and if you need any of our help in terms of being involved in any meetings or whatever, I'd be happy to do that. I did that for Environment Southwell the other year, and I thought that was a good process. We did some online things with current councillors to say to young people what's actually involved. break down the barriers, because you can obviously read a lot of theory about what it means to be a councillor or elected member, but actually just talking to people that are in those positions is a good way to do it. So I'll offer my support for that. So kia ora.
Order, Chairman, regarding that motion, that we're receiving those reports rather than noting it. It says, no, I know the recommendation says note, but surely it's not appropriate that we receive.
I'm happy with that. If the staff are happy to change that recommendation to receive, can we do that? Yeah, and if the mover and second are happy to put received instead of noted, it means it's more important, just so you know. Is everyone happy with that? And will everyone happy to their vote remains the same? Yep. Oh, good. I don't know if we're allowed to do that, Peter, but we just did it. Anyway, it's all on the video anyway, so that's good. Kaupai. Hey, thank you so much again, and well done. Thank you for the good work. Kia ora. And you're welcome to stay, and if you want. So awesome. Good work. You're too busy. You got stuff to do. Yeah, cool. Kaupai. We're going to go on to 8.3, and that's our Q2 work program update. Now, Emma's coming to the table. That's good. I know, Jess is online as well to support this, but hand over to you, Emma, to introduce it. Thank you.
Thank you, kia ora koutou councillors. So I'm here to present the Q2 work program update for the two portfolios, the regional strategic leadership and climate and community resilience. So there's quite a broad range of programs reported here within these two portfolios of work. So I'll just make a couple of sort of summary points and then take questions. So with regard to the regional strategic leadership, with exception to levels of service and key initiatives around resource consenting and compliance, the other levels of service and key initiatives are on track, and the report outlines the risks and the reasons for not achieving those two areas. Within the climate change and community resilience portfolio, all the levels of service are on track with exception to one, which is the review of the regional coastal environment plan. And that full review has been pushed out in terms of timeframes. I just wanted to bring attention, there's a broad range, but in particular some of the work that's gone in on providing and responding to government direction. So this period covers the October to December 2023 period, and during that time we made 5 submissions on government direction and policy, including the Environment Select Committee inquiry into climate adaptation, and also just wanted to bring attention that we're obviously going into a period where the PAs are consulting on their long-term plans, and so we will be reviewing those and providing submissions on that. So that's a piece of work come up in addition to our ongoing work on looking at the government direction. So I'll just highlight those points and take questions.
Thank you, Emma. Questions? Thank you.
So on page 45, under target 35.3, which is about monitoring priority consents, and that target is at risk, and it's flagged that it's at risk because of the high staff turnover, but that we're addressing that by training more staff. My question is, what are we doing in terms of improving retention? Because otherwise we're simply going to keep on chasing our tail.
It's certainly. I'll just talk to ask Judith to respond to that because she's got the most in-depth.
Kia ora, thanks for that. Look, Jennifer Rochford's provided me with a bit of an update to share. So there's a couple of things underway. You will be aware, as we were looking at environmental regulatory delivery programs for improving consenting, we've turned our attention also to compliance. So there's a big quite a range, breadth of work underway. One of the aspects is we have a career progression framework in place that we're looking and reviewing and updating, and that's giving staff that pathway to move from junior positions to senior. So that's a good way to build retention. So that's a continual review cycle. We've also had the staff current turnover is around 22%. Now that you do need to realise that that also includes any internal movements that might include be from a compliance role to a consent section, or even from a junior officer to a senior. So there's a little bit of an aspect there, but generally it's slowed down a bit, probably reflecting a change in job market externally and also the opportunities internally for movement. But we've got our eye on that space of, you know, how do we keep talent in the building and grow that capability as well.
And then my second question, which sort of just mentioned as well, actually. So on page 48, we have some information on improving delivery of compliance monitoring enforcement, and we flagged that we're scaling back on that because of the consent issue. And so, but yeah, I'm interested to know how important do we see that getting to that, and do we have any time frames around when we're picking that back up and getting moving on improving on that compliance enforcement area?
We're actually picked that already back up, so in this quarter, so that really reflected a response to support the uplift in consent to address the legacy issues and the you know, quarter arms to help, if you like. So that's already on track and picked up to be a focus.
Thanks, Vicky. I've got Councillor Davies, and then we'll go to Councillor Each. Page 41, paragraph 19. Just around in quarter one, we reported a risk related to internet connectivity within the Justice and Emergency Services precinct. Precinct was recently converted all devices to be network agnostic, and a network solution is being implemented to be in place early in quarter three. The remainder of the service level agreement is currently being met. So does the precinct currently have 24/7 full connectivity?
I don't have the answer to that. I'm looking to Catherine.
Sorry, okay, my button. Yes, yeah, it's now fully up. Yeah.
Thanks, Joe. Grant.
Thanks, Chief. I've got three questions. Page 40, item 12, just mentions the financial implications of the consenting process, not meeting time frames, requiring a discounted processing fees. And we know that in October, Council approved a sum of 3.5 million from general rates to overcome the resourcing issues. And then going from that clause to page 49, the financial analysis in the bottom box. And I'm just wondering, it mentions a reduction in ability to recover costs. Do we know, well, firstly, are the reductions in costs and the ability to recover costs, have they been incorporated into the financial analysis? And if so, do we know how much those discounting fees have cost us?
Now, I think Aurora's online, so she might have to jump in as well on this, but you might recall back when we came in October around the additional investment of $3.5 million. We identified that about the new capability and stuff, but we did identify that part of that figure was the model of how we budget for the consents with user pays is that if you increase resourcing, you also increase revenue potential. We acknowledge that with the increase in resourcing of the 39 people, that we wouldn't realise all that potential increase in revenue due to the legacy issue of backlog. And so we reduced that potential revenue of being 1.9 million to only 0.9 million. So in that figure, we did accommodate that, I guess, lost opportunity because of the legacy and tail effect of those refunds. I guess the challenge we've had is when you think of all the other staff, the work that we'd already had in place with the existing staff, that hadn't been factored in, the fact there was a discount coming through of, you know, staff actually doing the work but unable to recover the cost. So that's where we are. So at current figures, and also 1 and 2 for the actual cost of, I guess, where we've had to pay out refunds, which would have been money we had as revenue, is in the order of $790,000. 700, yeah, just under 800,000 for quarter 1 and 2. I just got to.
So just to clarify, of the 3.5 million previously approved in October, 790,000 is attributed to recovering, I suppose, effectively the lost cost.
No, 1 million of that is recognising that we're not going to recover costs of the 3.5.
Second question, page 21, and I think it relates to the summary on page 55 related to the flood and resilience program. There is mentioned there that there's a small variance relating to an overspend of the leading flood and river resilience program, and it's slightly higher than forecast, or the expenditure is slightly higher than forecast due to additional grant funding received over the forecasted levels. The additional money that's been spent on rivers, it's unclear about where that money has been spent. Is that on purely recovery, or is it maintenance, or how is that additional funding been spent?
Yeah, I think we would need to go away and get the detail on that information.
Okay, I think unless there's anyone online that can help us, we'll have to note that, Grant. Did we capture the question there, or can we go back and capture it in the video, just so that we have a clear note for next time? Yeah. Thanks. You all right with that, Grant?
Yeah, yes, it's sort of in page 55 there in the box there, it's, you know, anticipated responses, new grant funded nature-based solution projects, some civil defence stuff. So, you know, what's the breakdown of that, and where, and what has that money been spent on? I think that's what I'm interested.
Lee, are you get quick wardrobe change? Hey, thanks for jumping online. So are you willing to do that? I mean, we can leave it over as well if you need more time to come up with that, but hand it over to you.
I'll just make a short comment, and then I suggest we can cover it in more detail in the catchment committee meeting scheduled for April, if you're okay with that, Grant. So it's a bit of a combination of things between flood recovery, shovel-ready MFE funding, and maintenance, particularly capital expenditure of rock in the Waimakariri catchment. So it's a whole bunch of things colliding, but I just suggest if that's enough of an answer for now, we'll cover it comprehensively in the catchment paper, if you're comfortable with that.
Yes, that's excellent. Well, that might be the case.
Thanks, Lee. Have you got one more, Grant, or is that it?
The other question I've got is page 52 down the bottom, related to target 26.3, which is the gravel extraction, regional gravel management strategy. It wasn't achieved in 22-23. We don't. I'm pretty sure that we haven't really had much of an update of where that works at. It says it's on track to achieve, but presumably that's just meaning achieve of some preliminary work being done on it. It's not, you know, I just want clarification on that. So it's the first stage of working through that project. Presumably it comes to council for consideration before it goes out to the public as a draft.
Way you go, Lee, if you're willing to answer it. Yeah.
I'll answer this one. So the gravel management strategy is behind schedule, primarily due to a number of factors, including diverting all resources to flood recovery. So we won't be completing that this financial year, but staff are working on that, and we do have further hui with our partners, Ngāi Tahu and stakeholders planned this financial year. The plan is to bring a draft to council next financial year with the aim of completing it that financial year, but we can provide an update through the catchment committee on that as well. But it is unfortunately going slower than normal. It won't fix all the issues in gravel because it is linked to other things, including planning processes, but it will refresh the document, which is 10 years old.
Great, thanks, Lee. And presumably that you'll report more at the April meeting, which
Yes.
will show that as being not on track, but unlikely to be achieved or not achieved.
Yes, we'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Grant. Genevieve.
Thank you. Predictably, I'll be talking about the original coastal environment plan. Yeah, page 4120. Just discussing about identifying the benefits and risks of pushing out the time frame for the work. Clearly, the benefits have been that some of the funds have been reallocated to other planning frameworks and the like. However, I'm just wondering if we could see some of the risks identified, some of our statutory duties within that, and yeah, has that been identified? And could you provide a list of some of those things that have been highlighted in the process? Because I'm just reflecting on further into, which is actually 8.3, however, I need to refer to it, which is the level of service 22 that keeps being not achieved. And also, could I have noted in there somewhere that the notice of motion of last month that will bring around a report based on a scoping exercise from staff at the end of April regarding targeted plan changes within that.
Yeah, thank you. So confirm that staff will be bringing back a report to council on the notice of motion, and that will come back to council on the 1st of May to the meeting then. This particular report covers the Q2 time period, so it's the October to December period, which is why some of the activity, it's sort of a timing thing that we haven't captured the what's happened in the January, February time period, including the notice of motion. And as part of that sort of scoping exercise to determine costs and resources, we can have another conversation about how we identify some of those splits around that program of work.
Thanks, Genevieve. Thanks, Emma. Who's next? Ian.
That's great. On page 44, talk about environment schools. Apologies if I didn't flag this in previous, but is district council funding critical for any expansion of the environment school? Good. And I ask this because it's working zone committee. Seems to be an alternative program running down there, and maybe be at some stage a request to ask for a little bit of funding to support the alternative program alongside the environment.
I'll look to Tasman, who's got more information on the fire school.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Is the district council funding crucial to expansion of the borough schools? That was the first bit of the question. It enables us to do more, so depending on the level of funding from district councils and city council. So it's also contestable, so it goes through their long-term plan and annual planning process. So it's very difficult for us to stand up any more resource, for example, employing people on the basis of that funding coming through. But what it does do, it means that if that funding does come through, then we are able to expand a little bit more what we're doing. We can produce more resources and things like that, but it does depend on the quantum and the way we set it up. So, for example, with City Council, we've had an MOU set up, which has given us a bit of stability and been able to actually employ a fixed term resource for some of the duration of that MOU, which means we can get more schools in the City Council boundary. But it doesn't always work like that. So that bit of it is an extra that we work within whatever we get.
In the case of West Burton, the district council currently is not engaged in environmental schools program. They'll help fund it. Does that mean that no environmental schools will be going in West Burton district?
No, it doesn't, because you'll recall that this council collects rates for the Enviro Schools program from right across the whole region. So we've got a level of investment in Enviro Schools across the entire region. So Kaikoura would be a good example where we collect rates in Environment Canterbury. We go into that area, they've just come in. They've come in with a few $1,000s. It's not enough for us to be going, okay, we can now do 20 schools. But what it does mean is that we can increase the resourcing that we're putting into that in terms of goods and service resourcing. So no, if Ashburton District Council isn't in, it doesn't mean that we just leave their district alone. We're already in because we're collecting rates from Ashburton ratepayers through our rates. That answers the question.
I need to do some more work at research at home. So no, you've answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Any other questions on the work program update? And I think that point that Emma said before, the timing stuff, I know there's more recent stuff that's happened, and it's it's a bit of a catch up, but it is good to know what has happened since, so that it can be in the record. So that's good. And thanks for raising that too, Genevieve, about the notice of motion. Well done. So we'll put the motions to the table then, if everyone's had enough questions. And basically that's that we received the work program report for quarter 2, 23-24 for this committee. As you can read it, Genevieve will move it. Councillor Cranwell second it. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you. Thanks, Emma. Thanks, Judith. Thanks, Lee, Kathleen. Good questions, councillors. Well done. So we go to 8.4 now. Which is the climate action planning update. Tim's coming to the table. I know Jess is online, but maybe straight over to you, Tim, unless Jess is going to jump in.
Kia ora, Chair, and kia ora koutou. I was reflecting earlier about being a not you. I'm not sure if I'm a very not you or anyway. Look, yeah, exactly. I said it. Look, pleased to be able to bring you this update on the work that's been done around climate action in Environment Canterbury and across the region with our territorial authorities. And I really don't have a lot to say apart from what's in the paper, but I do want to just start by just being really clear about the difference between the Environment Canterbury Climate Action Plan and the regional partnership that's referred to here as the Canterbury Climate Partnership Plan. So the Environment Canterbury Action Plan takes things that are in the long-term plan, or in the proposed long-term plan as it is now, and anything that's got to do with climate action is being extracted and is being put into a separate document. So it really is the actions that are in our long-term plan, our proposed long-term plan, put into a separate document that then can be referred to later on to say this is the Environment Canterbury actions that are going to be done. So of course that's dependent on the long-term plan being approved. So we're developing it in conjunction. But all of the items in that action plan are in the long-term plan. And if you remember in the proposed long-term plan, there are things put across the core services for climate action. So that's the Environment Canterbury Action Plan, Climate Action Plan. The Canterbury Climate Partnership Plan is what sits under the Canterbury Mayoral Forum. That is the territorial authorities and Environment Canterbury agreeing on actions across the region. So, and it's particularly to do with, so rather than the actions done by the separate authorities,
it is, so, I mean, if I just gave a couple of examples, and there are quite a few, and the chair knows as well, having being on the steering group for this, but there is, I've just written. So, for example, there's work around education on climate change, and so you'll all be familiar with the It's Time Canterbury. One of the actions that is proposed under the Climate Partnership Plan is to extend that. And for example, there's work around a visualisation tool of climate hazard risks and opportunities for Canterbury that would be developed for all of Canterbury. So those are the sorts of things, and there's work around a best practice approach for adaptation planning and implementation, and there are a series of different actions that are proposed across all of Canterbury, and that partnership plan is being developed at the moment. There was a meeting last week of the steering group that Craig chaired that is being brought back to you for to see it at a briefing in April, and it's been taken to all of the councils, all of the territorial authorities also in April. And the idea is that will then, the funding for it is in the proposed long-term plans across the, for ourselves and territorial authorities, and it is funded by all of them. It's not just by us, these actions. And that will be going to the mayoral forum in the new financial year, so for full endorsement. So it's again, it's a little bit, you got to work between the long-term plans with the funding sits, and then what's actually agreed in that Canterbury Climate Partnership Plan. So that's the difference between the two. There's a brief update of what's going on. I mentioned that there are briefings coming here, and there are briefings going to all of the councils. The briefing that's coming here is actually on both the pieces of work. It's not just the partnership plan. The recommendations in your paper are about receiving the update, but also supporting the next steps, and the next steps being the incorporation into the long-term plan, seeking feedback and endorsement of the climate action plan in July, so that would be brought to a formal meeting of our council in July, and then for the Canterbury Climate Partnership Plan, finalising the draft actions of the Climate Change Reference Group. So we had the meeting last week. That's just been working through the feedback that came through there. It talks about briefings in April, then the completion of the draft plan, and then it comes to the mayoral forum. So I'll leave it there.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, happy to jump in on this one too. Like Tim said, we had the reference group meeting last week. Now, I know that sometimes we forget all these things, but so I've been our representative on that since the start of the training, and Mayor Dan Gordon is the chair of that group, and it has representatives from every TLA on it, which is really great. And most of them were there last week too. It was a really good turnout. Plus, there's a staff working group, which Tim's the convener of, and also we have Hamish Dobby, who's the CEO of Putanui District Council, who's also there on the group, being the CEOs who are representative from across the region. So it's no small feat to bring everyone together on this journey. And I think you'll appreciate that. There's different perspectives about climate change across the region, but the fact that everybody's there and everybody's engaged and everybody shows up and contributes is really significant. And I think it's really good that Tim's made that distinction about our own action plan, which is, as he said, bringing that into one place so we can see it better. The visibility of this has been something that we've pushed for since the last term at least. And that's going to be great to get that through the process. Hopefully we get good feedback on that. And then secondly, the Canterbury Climate Action Partnership Plan, the 10 actions was the focus of the meeting last week. So the staff brought us the 10 actions that they've summarised from our previous work of the reference group and the working group of staff, of course, and some feedback that came through the Pick a Path stuff we did last year for the RPS. Because alongside that, we ran some feedback on the climate action plan stuff there. And like Tim said, there's 10 actions, and he's identified a few of them. There's things in there about nature-based solutions, adaptation planning, best practice approaches, emissions reduction, how do we deal with that as a region? And the other thing is about, that went to the Mayoral Forum last time, was support from each council to put into that collective budget, so that manages this collective work above and beyond the actions that each council will do themselves. And I think that's important. And of course, at the meeting last week, not everyone's totally convinced yet about the need for this collective fund. But that's part of the sort of political process between us, the mayors, and each council to say, if we put this money together, we can have efficiencies of scale, and also we're trying to help the smaller councils as well as the larger ones. And also on the horizon is what funding may come from central government, and can we go there together rather than compete with one another. So that's sort of the things that are going on there. And I can see some questions, so I'll stop there and go to Ian and then Claire.
Just in terms of the funding, which I think you said that will be at the LTP. Has that got additional cost implications, or is it already budgeted? Our contributions are already budgeted.
Already budgeted. It's already in the proposed for the partnership plan and for the action.
And if things aren't agreed, does that mean we can get a rebate on the cost of the
Claire.
Ian's asked the question I wanted to ask. So the quantum, I wasn't aware. I mean, I know that we've got our action plan in there. So what's the quantum of the funding that we've got sitting in there for the climate partnership plan? Because it just feels to me like we're paying twice.
It would just take me a minute to find it. You've got it there. Sorry.
But what I will say is, there's obviously split between us and the 10 TLAs. And again, if we didn't do this, like with many other things that I've seen the region try to take a bit of a lead on, we end up paying for the whole secretariat ourselves, and we end up carrying that whole cost for the whole thing. So in this case, we've tried to get every TLA to come on board and agree to that up front, which is obviously has to go through each of their TLAs, our long-term plans as well. So that's a live discussion, but we're trying to talk to everyone about the sense of doing this together. So I think that's really important. And we've got Jess online there as well.
Through Mr. Yeah, look, apologies, councillors, I can't be in the room. I'm off on sick leave today, unfortunately. But yeah, the long-term plan, our contributions, the broader partnership plan has around about $200,000 in year one, moving up to about $500,000 in year two. And I think it's around about the same for year three. And that's the collective contributions from across the entire region. So our portion is a component part of that, and it's scaled amongst all of the different councils. This is in addition to the financial spend that we make through the LTP in a range of different areas that contribute to climate action across the region. So it's not a duplication of work, it's different work. And Craig and Tim mentioned before, just in terms of some of the projects, so things like the climate change risk assessment that we did a couple of years ago are a very good example of where the region has come together to deliver a piece of work that has informed a range of other outcomes and other streams of work, and it has been jointly funded through the climate change working group through the Mayoral Forum, and that's the types of actions that we want to take again through this partnership plan, through a joint collaborative contribution from all of the TAs and ourselves. So it's not looking to duplicate. That was one of the key elements to the partnership plan. It's about collaboration and joint work areas that benefit all councils without actually having to go off and do it separately ourselves, and obviously cost a lot more money in the long run. So hopefully that helps the conversation there.
Yeah, and we had some really good feedback from some of the councillors and council staff from around the region in the meeting when we raised this topic about how they believe it will be cheaper for them, to do it jointly rather than do it on their own. They said it will cost them so much more if they do this alone. So that's the whole point of the partnership plan, is to try and identify things that we can collaborate on rather than leave it to individual councils to deal with. Any other? I had Grant. Yep.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Tim. You pretty much answered my queries, which are going to be on item 13, 14, which is the, where are we at with things. But it looks like you're going to have some bringing those two together with some briefings in April or July, whatever. That sounds really good, because it's kind of that lack of information about what are those actions and when are they likely to happen, that sort of thing. And I suspect the Canterbury one, Environment Canterbury Climate Action Plan, I was thinking of the completion of the spatial plan and the identification within that of constraints related to climate risk and all those sorts of things, that presumably there's some element of that plan gets incorporated maybe into the regional policy statement. Is that part of that, or is that something totally different?
No, it is very much so that some of the things coming through will be coming through in the regional policy statement, and in fact that was part of the thinking behind the feedback that the public forum that were run around the regional policy statement. There were, at the same time, there was feedback sought around climate actions, and it was because some will be picked up through the RPS and some through this other way as well.
Thanks, Grant. Thanks, Tim. Any other questions? No, looks like that's it. Right. We'll put the resolutions to the table. And thanks, Tim. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Oh, good. Oh, you'd like to move it? Yeah. So Vicky's keen to move it. Grant keen to second it. Councillor Southworth and Councillor Ridge. Thanks for that. And yeah, I think this really, just before we put it, like, really important to note, and like we found out last week with the regional reference group. So, the staff that are involved in this are based here, Isla and Elena, and they're going around with the support of the other staff from each of the councils, getting around all the councils in April. It's a massive task actually to do these sessions. That we'll be having one of them ourselves, to get that feedback on the collective actions, and then keep trying to get support for this through until the LTPs are settled. So yeah, thanks. Yeah, you want to speak to it? Okay, go for it. Yeah, more than happy.
Thank you. So kia ora, thank you so much. I just feel so uplifted by hearing about it and where it's got to, and I'd like to thank Councillor Pauling for leading on this alongside Mayor Dan Gordon and all of this is precisely where the Climate Change Action Committee wanted to get to. So I'd like to think we managed to see this, this potential, and it is totally in collaboration across the PAs and us that we're going to achieve more than the sum of our parts, and to know that we're looking at how the budgets align and how our activities align in order to all work towards, greater resilience, greater mitigation, emissions reduction, etc. Like, it's the only way to go. We know that something like about 68% of our population are now really quite concerned about climate change. Hallelujah. So it's going in the right direction. I'm sure in another 10 years it'll probably be at 99% concern. And so, we've responded to our community's need, and I think it's fabulous. Thank you.
Thanks, Vicky. Grant, do you want to speak to it, or are you happy?
This is essential work. It's great work. It's kind of addressing the declaration of climate emergency 2019, and we're just stepping up a little bit more, and we're going to get some good information out of that. So it's all good.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak to it? Great. Okay, we'll put it to the floor. So I'm not going to read it all out there, but can we just split down or up or whatever it is, so people can see the start of it, so everyone's clear what we're voting on. So we're receiving the update on this point. Don't know what that extra little CR in there is, but anyway, we can get rid of that. And we're supporting the next step has been identified, which is the internal action plan, as you said, which is our long-term plan stuff. as well as the partnership plan, which will come back to us as well in the next few months. So all those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Carried, thank you. Awesome. We'll go to 8.5, which is the chair's report. Look, I'll take it as read. There's lots of stuff in here, but I will invite any councillors that want to speak to different parts that they're involved with. You see there's the regional partnership update in terms of the Greater Christchurch Partnership, Canterbury Mayoral Forum, which I see unfortunately Peter's not here for, the CDM stuff in particular that other councillors. So if Graham or Vicky want to speak, you don't have to, but up to you. Take it as read.
Pretty much take it as read, but yes, with the Greatest Christchurch Partnership, yeah, have basically recommended that the plan that was revised following the hearing process be approved by the partner councils, and that's shortly in the process of getting underway. I think it's April. More information will come to all the councils, and then that'll be adopted.
Thanks, Grant. I know that's been a massive process, so, you know, well done to you guys that have been on there, but also I think Grant was on the hearing panel. I know that was lots of work, so well done on that. Mayoral Forum, Peter's not here, but of course I wasn't here, but I did hear that Rod Carr gave quite a stirring presentation, and we've had Rod here to this committee as well before, so I don't know what the key takeaway from that, unless any staff in the room were there. Were you there, Fiona? You weren't? No. Sorry. There was something important to say about that, but I don't know what it was because I wasn't there. What was it? Oh, okay. Okay. Do you know about that? Yeah? No, okay. And then CDM stuff, do you want to make any mention of that, John?
Yes, just a couple of comments on that meeting. Phil, whilst the Port Hill fires were still active or just coming to an end, we had Minister Mitchell down for 2 or 3 days through that process. He was on the ground getting across all the different responses, and did come into our CDM meeting for 15 minutes and made some brief comments on what was achieved, the difference between 2017 Port Hill fires and what had been achieved this time around. The lessons learned and actions and plans, and literally pulling the report out from 2017 and looking at that and what was then put in place this time around. We also had a conversation, Selwyn District are looking at doing some work, or are doing some work around plantation forestry and risk, particularly in relation to fires, and Christchurch City are doing the same. We had a brief conversation as to how we might approach changing the NES plantation forestry. We can do what we like here, I think, but we don't actually have any ability. So Minister Mitchell was definitely interested in that conversation. I talked to Minister Watts, who was standing in for Todd McClay a fortnight ago, and had the same conversation about how we might be able to make some changes. Just writing in something that would allow risk or fire risk to be written into regional or territorial authority plans. So I think it's a live conversation. I talked to Peter, I think, and definitely to Dion about I think us getting together with Christchurch and Selwyn District and putting something together in a submission, looking at those submissions to see if we can do something. It's not about banning forestry. Christchurch City are talking about setbacks, others talking about setbacks and fire banks at risk. So I think that's an active conversation that this organisation could continue with the likes of Selwyn District and Christchurch to see if we could make some changes into that NES is a dog's breakfast. That's really, I guess, the crux of it. We've got an organic change slowly happening to the CDM review that I instigated. TAs and mayors weren't very happy. They very much on their patch and say we're okay, Jack, and their arms are still a wee bit crossed. But we have now got a recognition that there could be some clustering of groups together in South Canterbury and have a joined up approach to a piece of work. Probably not the revolution that we might have been looking for, but there is a slow change. And there was also a thought around putting a panel together for recovery and just having a group of people available to test thoughts and ideas. Basically experts in the field, whether they be MSD or business or whatever, whatever, just as a challenge. But again, that's some reasonable resistance from the mayors and some of the chief executives saying that's our business and we do it and we won't be told what to do. So it's an ongoing conversation. We will work towards it. It's not about telling people what to do, but providing an enhanced resource to challenging things. So we are making some progress and there's some interesting things, but I think the important one at this point is maybe generating more of that MES forestry conversation so that we don't get ourselves back into the space that we are.
John. Darren, got a question on that?
Yeah. So John, just on through the chair, I think, just on this NES thing, I've been thinking about this for quite a bit, trying to understand actually how we stop talking about it and start actually doing something about it. I'm even sort of contemplating foreshadowing the motion here just to say that we're actually going to resolve to actually write a letter to the minister about with our salary and Christchurch to actually do something on this. I don't think there's any harm in doing that, and I don't actually think there's any risk either. But I think it actually just sort of sends a signal to say we're actually quite serious about this, and we need to do it. So I'm pretty happy to foreshadow a motion to say that we want to do that. Whatever wording put around that, I don't know, but I just sort of get guidance from John on if we can be fun on this.
I'm more than happy whether it's a notice of motion or we just sit here and agree and pass it off to staff and we'll begin the work. I had a brief conversation with Mayor Sam and said, would you be happy if we came on board and we sort of pulled it together and did something? And he was more than happy. They are doing their report, which is their report, but more than happy for us to come together and work through something. So whether it requires a notice of motion or we just accept that that's a piece of work that science or policy or whoever needs to get on with, have a conversation and move it forward.
You got a question about this, Vicky? Yeah.
Just to flag that I have been raising some issues for our own constituents around the Littleton, Cafe, those areas, the Governor's Bay in particular. And it's been raised, I've raised it a couple of times now, Harvey Harbour Group, and so it's been talked about there, involves private landowners, LPC, and us, PPC, and so on. So just if it would be it might be worthwhile making sure that there's a number of us who are engaged in that, including, for example, Mana Whenua, including maybe ICTC partners, and perhaps we can then elevate it to something that's really significant, which is coming from a number of groups.
In terms of taking this forward, I'm sort of picking up, and you got a question on this as well?
Just a comment really picking up what John was saying. I quite like the idea of just having some staff having a bit of a conversation, because there's potential issues that we shouldn't forget about in terms of the regional policy statement, spatial planning across the district, about giving regional councils or district councils some say in the location of forestry, not just for the fire risk part of it, but maybe for other reasons. I'm thinking of landscape values and other values that we might have, whether it's beside a river or water, all of those sort of things. And it's a broader discussion about how that might fit in.
Yep, it is a broader discussion, and it's one we could have for years. And the concern is if you want to go to biomass and biofuel and change when you plant trees, you plant trees by the industry that needs the fuel. So we could spend years debating a conversation if we really want to look at something quite specific around risk and fire. I think we need to work now rather than spend significant time developing a policy that can follow. But if we're really looking at that risk piece, it's possibly just a couple of lines in a revised NES that gives authority to look at and make some move. But that's my view.
Yeah, in terms of progressing that, I think the most best thing to do is to get staff to come back with some information on it to us, but not that it needs to take up much time. I'm happy to note that in this meeting. Is that how we do it? I'm looking for some advice here. To note it in the meeting, note it as an action. Yep. That we so just getting the words right. That we request some feedback on the next steps for a collaborative submission on the NES plantation forestry. Yeah, well, you can make, add a resolution if you want to work on some wording while we're doing the rest of it. I'm happy to put that to the floor. So, Peter, you're back. So we'll get to that at the end of it. Do you want to do the little thing on the Mirror Forum about Rodcast thing? Or?
Yeah, essentially, there was a lot of discussion in the Mirror Forum on a lot of different issues, including the Canterbury Water Management Strategy, the reorganisation of zone committees, and that process that we'll go through further, given that schedule of stuff that we're doing. And as always, there is some debate with the media around those zone committees. So Rod Carr was pretty actually challenging in some of the things that he said to us. He talked about greenhouse gas emissions and our need to reduce those, our adaptation to climate change, and the opportunities that exist in Canterbury in terms of the available science that we have here in terms of climate change. So I guess it plays out some of the conversations that we're having here today, and the fact that, it's like nothing came here, just the lack of data that's available for us to make some of these decisions. I think some of that that's coming out of Canterbury that I talked to you about this morning is that we probably need to lean on those guys a bit more, the two Toms, Logan and Watson. And he made the point to the mayors that leadership in this space is the critical thing, that they need to actually step forward into the space. And, so there's some of the things he pushed on pretty hard where that water, that the water issues in Canterbury, the water resource in Canterbury matters more than anything in terms of the space that we're going to go into in the next 50 to 100 years. And those resources need our attention now. The utilisation of them, the capture of them, the use of energy and other things. And talking about energy, there are renewable technologies that we need to be adopting, solar and wind, with much better distribution networks. And the fact is that you can actually, you don't want to trade all of your water for energy, because your water is going to be used for other things. Without the urgent stop to combustion of fossil fuels. Transport, we talked about mode shift and transport, which is important that we're doing that, noting that, we've got, especially in our bus fleet, something we've got control of, but our 300 buses, we've got 60, hopefully, 64 electric buses. Problem with that is moving to electric buses and take something to get their things. And also developing new technologies in the support of lower emissions. And, the thing that we're doing here with my branch reference, GCP to the spatial plan is critical to that. Effectively, with my transport corridors that will be a future for the city into the future, and the fact that the spatial plan and the national transport and the future uplift is pushing down those lines. He made that point, but he also made that point to most people. He made a note here which I found outstanding, mind-boggling, that 800 heavy vehicles, heavy trucks in the Islands in Canterbury, it's in New Zealand, contribute 8% of the heavy vehicle emissions. 20% of the light vehicle fleet is 50% of everything. So, there's an opportunity here. Now, I think which helps straight up. Hopefully, I see the here. I don't think make up of that 800 they make up. Food production. So this was a point that I think we need to get some. We need to actually test this in terms of where we're at food production and the cost of that. With greenhouse gases, other countries are moving pretty quickly to ensure that their footprint is lighter than ours, and they'll get there. Just the fact that chicken also slips with a very light impact on greenhouse gases, where food doesn't. talked about the finance and insurance businesses moving to global underwriters moving away from this. And we've talked about that here in this room, and we also talked about that back to properties trees and forestry. So he thinks that forestry is still going to be the biggest opportunity to reduce emissions and meet the targets. But made it very clear that those forests need to be managed. That just planting trees for the sake of planting trees is going to lead to the unintended consequence there when the maturity of the bloody thing's going to be through. So we need to make sure that we do that properly. And then just some stats for you, and Canterbury produces 11.6 million tonnes of greenhouse gases, 14% of New Zealand's total. Transport is responsible for 1 million tonnes, energy for 3.6 million tonnes, that includes coal, gas, and standby generation. Waste is about 0.5 million tonne, nitrous oxide 1.6 million tonnes, and methane 6 million tonnes. So, as you put it, those are the challenges for us. And if we're not moving quickly in the next, these are histories on our mind. If we're not moving quickly in the next 20 to 30 years to address some of the issues we've had in terms of our primary production, the rest of the world will leave us behind. And they'll leave us behind because their footprint will be lower than ours. But their customers will want to buy their product and that's the case for us. However, the other side of that is that as that market shrinks, then our markets will open up. And our markets in climate change will be Melbourne, Brisbane, Sydney, Australia. So there's a quid pro quo. You don't have to agree with everything that Rod said. It's not a popular thing, but I think the opportunity, I just said this to Cheryl is that we need to have some sort of think tank about it. We've got all this information, believe it or not, we need to be able to sit and talk about it. So, yeah, great conversation, Craig. But challenging also the fact that you're sitting in this room here, you're a leader, and what are you going to do?
Thanks, Peter. Has anyone got any questions? Yep, Ian.
Did you discuss the hour issue?
Yeah, we talked about hour, and we talked about where we were heading with that piece of work, and the fact that we were still waiting for that work to come to us in this room to understand what the brief of that was, and what was the opportunity, what was the cost and what was the opportunity to go and do that. So it's similar conversation that we had in this room last week. They're very interesting, of course, because of the issues that they have specifically around the stormwater and climate here and roads. And I will note, Councillor, that there's some pointed comments from your end. I've noted.
You take notice of.
Sort of got them between the eyes, so we didn't have to take them.
I've got Councillor Karakia with a question.
This is a question.
Can't hear you too well, but carry on.
Okay.
What's that?
I wondered if there was a Mana Whenua update around the Merrill Forum as to how the Hiranui are actually visiting Kaikoura this week. Was there any mention about that?
You pick up that, Peter?
No, I spoke informally with the Mayor and the CE from Kaikoura in terms of their preparedness for us to be up there and those arrangements. At that stage, I don't think we'd finalised the Mana Whenua arrangements in terms of the pukuri and that sort of thing. So that is all in place now, so we're more comfortable with that, I guess.
I was talking more about Hiranui.
No, we didn't. No.
Cool.
Is that all good? Councillor Karakia, you're done? Thank you. So I think that's all the questions and stuff on that, and the feedback. Thanks to those councillors that gave feedback about that. You'll note that there's the resource management reform stuff in there. We are expecting the fast track stuff to come out this week. And then the 100-day plan stuff, you'll note that the GPS came out yesterday or the day before or something like that. So just noting those things, and you'll see there stuff about the Waipara coal there as well, the strategy development that's ongoing. I think we're getting more updates, not necessarily about that, but about the stuff we've been dealing with at Taumutu and Browns Beach at the catchment committee meeting in a couple of in April, as we heard earlier on. So that'll be happening then. So we'll end that there, and we'll go to the resolutions. And I think, have we had a resolution from the floor as well? Cool. So we only had one resolution, but we've had one put forward here. We'll just take the first resolution first, so we get that out of the way, and then we'll deal with the other two in a minute. So first of all is just to receive the chair's report and note the things that are in it. Is everyone? Well, I'll move that. You want to second the report? Actually, can I move when I'm given it? Okay, cool. Okay, John seconds it. Cool. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Cool. Now I'll just take some time there to when it's finished, we'll bring that up so we can see the 2 and 3 there. So let's just have a look at this. Request staff to prepare a draft joint letter in collaboration with Karakia City Council and District Council to the Minister of Forestry regarding the National Environmental Standards for Forestry Management and Fire Risk in response to the Port Hills fire incident. Request staff to present the draft letter to the council for consideration and approval at a future meeting prior to sending. Are people okay with that? Well, it's been moved. If you got to move it, you're moving it down. And John seconded it. Okay, do you want to speak to it? Where you go?
I'm keeping it relatively specific but quite wide at the same time, so that we just get it through. It's a really important issue. I think we should just take a bit of leadership that it needs to be done. I don't want to sort of make too much of a big song and dance about other stuff. There's a lot of other stuff that you can get involved with, but I think this is something specific that we should take a bit of a stand on and get done. That's why it's important enough. A lot of people are talking about it, and I think it's just the way we can do it.
I like the Brett Thomas National Environment Standards for Forestry Management and Fire Risk in Response to Port Hills Fire. So it's a very wide brief. You can read whatever you like into it, but it says reference to the fire risk of the Port Hills Fire, and you can extend it from where you're at. You might want to go so as a view of quite huge hazard. So I think it gives staff the indication of what we're looking for, and the brief will be built from there.
I still think it's too narrow. If the minister is going to, or the government is going to look at an MES and just stick to the fire risk thing, it could be insufficient to deal with the problems and the other problems in the standard. And I'm just wondering if rather than just saying forestry management and fire risk and associate, I don't know, just some other word in there. It needs to be broader than just fire risk. If you're going to attack that particular MES, it's terrible, the whole thing. And yeah, oh anyway.
I support what you're trying to do with this motion. I just wonder whether it needs to be restricted to the City Council and so on, District Councils, or whether in fact the other TAs may want to offer an opinion as well. I mean, I agree it should be focused on fire risk. I agree with you, what you're trying to do. I'm not proposing to mess up what you're trying to do, but I just whether implicit in the motion is we talk to the other TAs to get their buy-in if they're willing to buy without trying to make it complicated.
I guess from my view is City and Selwyn are looking at a response and investigating it, and us joining that conversation gives the regional umbrella and the push. I have no problem with others being engaged,
but I don't see I'm wanting a long drawn out process. It's like, let's just get it up, hit them, see what happens, and get that conversation happening.
I mean, clearly people on the Fort Hills are more irresponsible than anyone else in these regions, but that's no reason why they should be the only ones worried about fire, I guess.
Do you want
Yeah, I agree. The constrained number, because and it's specifically relevant in relation to the Fort Hills fire, is actually your angle you're coming at this from, and it's the second one in 7 years. So it's really difficult and an issue, and it's using a crisis to create some action. So it makes sense. But the only bit I did mention, Manawhānau report, I thought because Jane had gone, but actually, Councillor Karakia is on the line as well. So I do wonder if we should also make sure we incorporate Manawhānau into this, specifically the Fort Hills area, just give them a heads up or something.
It's not a specific outcome for that Fort Hills or Selwyn district. It's writing a clause into an NES that states regional policy statements, and through that instrument, territorial statements can look at risk and fire risk as part of their planning instruments. So we're not going, this is about the Fort Hills or this is about Selwyn. It's an adjustment to an NES that allows a regional policy statement to give effect and think about the risk through and a TA to do. So we're not looking at, it's providing us with the opportunity within our instruments to put something in which we don't have at the moment.
Highlighting an issue that's local but actually has a broad perfect.
Say this, but the impetus from this has been gained by the Fort Hills Fire. The ministers came and the Prime Minister to have a look at this. When you talk to them about this, they all understand what's that because they've been up here and looked at it. So I think that if you push it too wide, then it loses its effect.
Or anyone else that likes to speak to it? Yeah, when we'll come back to you, Dion. Anyone else that wants to speak to it? You want another go, Grant?
Quickly, I mean, I can understand the narrowness of it, and I'm pretty sure that this council made a submission on the NES at the time it's going through. So there's a reference to what was said in that. It would be useful for staff to just check.
Sure, that staff will look at that. So that's a good noting point. Well, I don't disagree with you, Grant. I know that there's other issues with the NES for forestry management, but I think there's a good point here about just keeping this simple. I acknowledge your point too, Vicky. I had the same thought, but I think it's okay just to get on with some actions to make this happen. I mean, the staff will again take that into account. I think when they look at it, and Stephanie looks at it and goes, actually, maybe I do need to reach out to the runanga, but I think at this level it's fine to leave it the way it is. So go back to you, Dion, if there's no.
I just wanted to respond to what Grant was saying, and I do agree with what he's saying, but this approach is what they did in Whakatau when they had Cyclone go through, and they went to the forestry minister and said, we need to change some of these things around planting where we've got land that is susceptible to landslides, and they've got those changes through. So I think if we get this change through, there's a whole lot of other stuff that can happen, but if we go too wide, we're going to lose the impact. The impact is with, I know the City Council and Selwyn are doing stuff right now to make it an effect. We just need to kick it in the guts and get it done.
Well, good. There is a Minister of Forestry, that's correct.
I would copy it to the Minister for the Environment and Civil Defence and others, just to make sure that loop is as wide as possible because they're all interested in it.
I'm sure staff will bring that through with those sort of suggestions. So let's put it to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Carried. Well done. Thank you. Yeah, 2 and 3. Sorry, I should have made that clear. Yeah. And we did have a good suggestion here from Vivo about could have put including the Port Hills fire, but I think the argument to keep it specific is pretty clear. All good. Cool. That ends item 8.5, and the next meeting is of this committee is 12th of June. And Oscar, do you want to do the Karakia to close? You can open up your little book there if you like and click a closing one if you feel confident. If not, I'm happy to do it.
Kia tau, kia tātou, katoa, te atupai o te tātou ariki ahiku karaiti, me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhingi takitanga, ki te wairua tapu, ake, 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 ame.
Thank you.